this video, you're going to see how to apply antimicrobial film to the front and back of this bathroom door. And one of the best ways to wrap a bathroom door is by taking it off the hinge into an area where you can lay it flat. It just makes it much easier and focused. So when possible, definitely do that. Be careful when you're obviously walking through the space. You don't want to damage the door or any frames that you're walking through. With everything set, it's all about prep. In this case, you want to take off the hardware, and we're going to be doing two bathroom doors, one for the men's bathroom and one for the women's bathroom. So you want to make sure you organize all your tools and screws and just make sure they're focused on one door at a time. You don't want to mix the two. Then it's all about prep. So in this case, it's a brand new door, so not a whole lot of prep. You don't have to do any sanding or anything. Just make sure you degrease. Try not to spray directly on the surface. Make sure there's no specks inside any gaps. With everything cleaned and prepped, we'll begin with the side that faces out. And this actually has a full print graphic, and then it was laminated with a wood grain antimicrobial lamination. This actually comes from Hexus. So I love having that texture because it matches obviously the print, so you get that extra 3D effect. So obviously make sure that it fits top to bottom, left to right. So your designer should always put in extra bleed. Try not to get too precise. So just take extra time, making sure that you really don't come up short. Now, using a backing paper cutter is always a good idea to create a little exposed area of the adhesive, and that helps just lock the panel in place nice and easy, no magnets needed. Now, with everything set, just again double and triple check that you have the right alignment. Using that white trim at the top to set it to the top edge is a really good way to make sure it stays straight. Then pull the liner off, and it really depends on the type of full print film that was used. Some are more aggressive than others, but for the most part, just try to keep that liner on just until the very last minute. Now, what's nice about working in this nice horizontal position, just pull the backing paper, the freehand, make sure it stays straight, doesn't want to drift left to right, so always double and triple check. Only takes a few seconds to do that. And notice that I'm wearing rubber gloves right now. And the reason why I'm wearing rubber gloves is they actually recommend that when you're using antimicrobial film that you wear rubber gloves just to maintain the pristine surface. So highly recommend checking out those product bulletins, or the Rapins who actually made the product bulletin for Hexus, so watch that video. So with everything squeegeed on, very straightforward, and bam, so nice easy flat install, keeping that backing paper on, using the right full print film. Very important to do a 360 right now. Double check that all the edges are 100% uniform, because now it's cutting time. Because it's cutting time, always want to make sure, especially on wall doors, that you want to make sure you have a super sharp blade, get a really nice precise cut. Now keep in mind that this is a combination of calendar film and cast film, and it's fairly thick, around I would say 5.5 mil thick. So make sure to have that blade extra sharp, and the freehand pulls away as the blade cuts right on the edge. So very important to get that nice even tension. You can see I have about a 1/4 inch extra bleed right there. And I'm actually just wrapping the face, so the freehand is really critical now for creating that nice good flow. If I had too much excess film, then just adjust, grab it closer, then pull away. And you can see the blade angle is slightly beveled in on this side. So the first side was 90 degrees. This side is beveled, and the reason why is the edge of the door is slightly beveled right there. So by angling the blade in, you get a super flush cut. There's no chance of someone actually picking up an edge. So you really want to make sure you read the edge before you make your cut. If you have to go 90, go 90. Otherwise, go angled in. Now here, just a very straightforward cut where the vent is. So here, don't have to hold it away with a freehand because there's just nice and good tension on the material, and bam. So once that's cut out, now we're going to flip the door over. Now for the inside of the door at the Rep Institute Center, we just wanted to keep it white, but wanted to add some antimicrobial property film just again to make it hygienic and make sure everyone felt safe. So of course it's all about cleaning, make sure there's no specks on the door at all, especially in this case because basically you're going to put lamination on top and you'll see every type of speck that goes underneath it. Here, because the lamination is aggressive, pull one corner 45 degrees, pull the other corner 45 degrees, and that really helps release the liner nice and easy without it folding on itself. So good tip and trick for that. Once you expose the adhesive just a little bit, I'm going to spray it down. And in this case, just spraying with distilled water. No soap and water in there at all. Just basically distilled water is really good as a glide solution, and it tends to dry super quickly once you get it on the surface, which makes cutting super easy to jump into right away. So I highly recommend just getting used to using distilled water. Plus, it's really cheap. So just make sure you have a big container at your shop, constantly fill your spray bottles with it. But for me, I'm more and more using distilled water only, and it really works. But notice that I'm working in nice stages right now, just making sure I don't get too greedy, just pulling off the liner, because again, exposing too much without wetting it can be a big problem. So once I pull off the liner, make sure it doesn't fold on itself right there, so being extra careful. Again, wearing those rubber gloves just to protect keep the finish pristine. Once the backing paper goes away, then double checking that the surface is super coated right now. Again, just using distilled water, so having a pressurized sprayer is absolutely critical. And love doing this wet install. Could definitely do it dry, but the problem of doing it dry here is the fact that it might show squeegee strokes, which you definitely don't want, and sometimes they wet out and sometimes they don't. But in this case, by doing a full wet install, my squeegee quality is going to be super high. It actually doesn't take that much longer, and for me, what I like about it is just that nice smooth workflow. So now that I dropped it like it's hot, it's all about creating glass. Remember, glass means go, wrinkles mean no. So especially in this case, when you're doing a wet install with just lamination, keep in mind this is around 2 mil thick, so pretty thin, you want to make sure that you just make sure there's no wrinkles at all. So it's just baby shifts here and there. I see a little wrinkle right there on the right. So now that I have glass, and because it's distilled water, which tends to dry up pretty quick, very important to just spray extra moisture under there just to make sure that nothing's going to stick, because then you're going to see those squeegee lines. So just being extra thorough right now, doing a 360 and just adding that little bit extra moisture. Very important to do that. Don't assume that it'll be okay. This literally only took a few seconds and the payoff is nice and big. So this pressurized sprayer goes to the side. I double check to make sure I have glass, and this is going to be pretty straightforward and good to go, and done. So once everything is set, it's squeegee time. So basically just squeegee right in the middle to anchor it on. I have plenty of excess film, so I don't have to worry about alignment like I did on the other side, and just keeping that squeegee nice, low and flat, overlapping the squeegee strokes. And you can really see, obviously, if you missed a spot, so obviously go back and finish it off, but just nice overlapping strokes. Highly recommend using a medium to hard squeegee in this case, because it really just kind of pushes that moisture out. Very straightforward. And obviously, moisture is going on the floor, so make sure you have extra paper towels or microfiber towels to sop up any moisture, just to make sure the workspace stays safe and professional. And then once everything's on, always want to do 360 on the outside edges just to make sure it's set, and then double check the main face just for any moisture left under, any bubbles. So you really want to make sure you go back and get that, because those things you don't really want to pop, because bubbles with water behind can really come back to haunt you in terms of quality. So be extra thorough, make sure everything's down super tight before you jump into the cutting game. And speaking of the cutting game, I highly recommend waiting at least 2 to 3 minutes before jumping in, because you really want that distilled water to dry out on the edges. Once you feel like the edges are set, click the blade, and it's the exact same cutting process as the other side. Just keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, this material is much thinner than the material that went on the other side. This is 2 mil versus around 5.5 for the opposite side. So the thinner the material, the better the chance that it kind of folds on itself and then maybe makes a bad cut. So super sharp blade, pull away with a nice even tension, and once the sides are cut, clean up all these gaps. Then the hardware can go back on, and this means door number 1 for the men's bathroom is done. And now for the women's bathroom, the exact same setup. So nice, good workflow. You can see that these now, instead of sitting on sawhorses, are sitting on race ramps, which can act as basically sawhorses as well. And I actually like them because it's a nice wide base and they're grippy. So multi-purpose use for race ramps, not just for cars. And then once the women's door is done and the men's door is done, they can go back in and good to go. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Justin Payton.